I must have jinxed myself in the last episode. I said that when it comes to old project bikes, the question isn't will it run, it's will it run with a reasonable amount of effort. In this video, I find out that my motor has to come out for a pretty important fix. So yeah, there's your answer. After I first got this bike running, I took it for a test ride, a bunch of things broke, and it left me stranded. So today I'll be fixing that stuff, getting it back on the road, and also discovering the reason this engine will be coming out in the next video. If you want to see this build make it to the Grand Canyon like I bought it to do, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, purely as moral support. I think I'm gonna need it. The distance from my house in Concord, California to the Grand Canyon National Park is 776 miles. This is a road trip that I've fantasized of and dreamed about for a long time. Now name a better vehicle to take that trip on through treacherous deserts and canyon roads than a 35-year-old motorcycle with 43,000 miles that sat in someone's backyard for 8 years. We still have a long way to go before this bike is safe for a trip like that. For starters, last episode my brake caliper was dragging. I didn't realize until it was too late. So I roasted the pads and the rotor. The rotor actually warped and cracked. And I actually had a pretty close call on that one, so definitely regret not tackling the brake system earlier. Then the bike started gushing coolant from the overflow. Now I think the fix for that is going to be just a simple $20 part, but I'm going to test the rest of the cooling system just to be sure. All these parts and a couple other that I've already put on the bike took a lot of searching and effort to find, but I finally have them all together. The bike was missing these cooling fins, just 3 of them. For some reason one was left. Luckily I was able to find them on eBay for a pretty good deal. I found a horn at a junkyard a couple hours away, and I got a used rotor for about 50 bucks on eBay. This is a $100 kit to rebuild the front brake master and the front brake caliper. That may not have been completely necessary, but after boiling the brake fluid and seeing it fizz out the sides of the caliper, I decided that I'd rather be safe than sorry and not get stranded in Arizona. This kit also includes new front brake pads. I was smart enough to think that I could just put on new pads once I thought I had fixed the dragging problem, and that my old rotor might have been okay, but that was before I noticed the crack. This is what happened to the brand new $40 set of pads that I put on that old rotor. You can see the heat spotting on the sides there from where they continued dragging. And if you look closely in there, you can see a ridge that formed at the top of the pads. The last piece is these turn signals. They were like 40 bucks on Amazon. I'm gonna put them on the front here with some brackets, and they're gonna attach just like this. I'm also debating getting a cafe style front fairing for it. Let me know what you guys think. They're like 50 or 100 bucks. I don't know, it could be cool, keep some of the wind off my face, but not sure if it'll ruin the look of the bike. And while we're up here, I didn't get a chance to film this, but I installed these new Z-bars. They're the same rise, but they give a much more comfortable position. So it's time to dig in, pull apart the master cylinder, the caliper, put it back together with the new rotor, and hopefully no more drag. If you just started doing this, you're not gonna have a lot of tools, and they can be expensive. So I would say, don't immediately run out, go to Harbor Freight and buy a bunch of cheap garbage. Go to flea markets. This 1/4-inch ratchet was like $4. I took it apart, cleaned it out, greased it up. Listen to this. Minty. When I first started buying questionable garbage on Facebook Marketplace, I used to always ask myself if I was going to even be able to make any fixes I would find. Now I just ask myself if I really care enough to put in the time and money. It's pretty much a guarantee you're going to find something that you weren't expecting when you buy something that's been sitting for a long time or owned by a meth head or what have you. At the end of the day, you just have to be in it more for the process than for the finished product, or you're going to wind up hating your life when you have to spend a lot of late nights and a lot of extra cash to get the thing across the finish line. I'm pretty excited actually about putting all new parts on the brakes. I used to really be a person that would do things as cheap as possible. Even going as far as like I've ordered Chinese master cylinders off eBay for builds before. That's just a terrible idea. They're awful. Like that specific build, the master cylinder went out on me, and I was lucky that I was on the way down a hill and then it was an incline after that, so I was able to slow myself down. And yeah, it feels good to spend a little bit of extra money to just do things correctly and safely. I've won and lost a lot of money trading options on Robinhood, pretty much all dependent on how good my luck was that day. Sometimes fixing old garbage feels a lot like that. You never really know what you're gonna get. When you come out ahead, you pretty much just feel lucky. When you come out behind, you feel screwed over. Either way, this is a lot more fun than watching numbers go up and down on a screen, so I'll stick to this and stay away from the Wall Street bets.
Before I start putting it back together, this needs to get cleaned out. If you hadn't noticed, I recently moved, so now I have an excuse for why my shop is messy. It's actually a lot better in here now than it was at my last house. There's a little more floor space going on, more order to the chaos. Oh, I got some in my eye. There is a ton of corrosion in this port here and in this one. I have a strong feeling that this was a lot of the source of my problem. The fluid wasn't able to feed back into the master. I'm using acetone, which ironically seems to be doing more than brake clean was. Making progress. There's just a lot of gunk in here. It took a long time, but I finally got this cleaned out, so it's time to reassemble. I'm gonna line up all my new parts next to my old parts, compare them, make sure they're the same, and then I line everything up properly. You can see the badly compacted seals on the old one versus the new one.
Some shop manuals won't tell you how to rebuild certain brake components like the master and the caliper, which I think is pretty ridiculous because people are still going to try to do it anyway, and then they just won't have the correct instructions on how to do it safely, which is what I'm doing right here. Giving it my best guess, but I've done it a few times before, and it's always worked out.
I'm doing the last couple of bits here on this master. I was messing around looking at the bike, trying to remember if I had anything else major I had to do that I forgot about, and there's a little puddle of coolant under the bike. No big deal, right? Could just be some basic seal. No, it's actually the coming out of the weep hole in the water pump. And that means that the one of the main seals in the water pump has failed. And the only way to fix that is to pull it out and either rebuild it, which is pretty tough, or replace it, which is pretty expensive. And the only way to get the pump out is, well, I'll show you. All right, chapter 9, cooling system, water pump. Step 1, remove the engine from the frame. We're gonna circle back to that.
Calipers are much more straightforward than master cylinders, and with a little bit of compressed air, assuming you have single piston calipers, you can get that piston right out.
So these are the brand new pads I roached. Bummer.
If you have two pistons like I do, it's a little more tough.
So this one already popped out. Now I got no air pressure left, so I'm gonna get this the rest of the way out. I don't know, I'll have to get creative on this one. I ran some hot water through this to kind of loosen up the rubber, and then just basically did this and worked it back and forth until it came out. Now, what you're doing when you're redoing a caliper is replacing these seals here. So you just pull them out with a pick, lube up some new ones, and throw them in.
Never try to use channel locks to get the pistons out. You'll always score them up and then have to replace them, and then they'll score up the seals and leak, and it's just a really bad time.
They're still pretty supple. Probably wasn't necessary, but I already got the kit and it came with the pads, and it'll make me feel better. So this is the brand new seal that came with this Brake Crafters kit, and it just instantly ripped. They don't look very nice. I don't know if you can see it, but they have all these seams, and the 36-year-old OEM seals original look better. So Brake Crafters, I'm not impressed with this particular product. I think you need to source nicer seals. I don't know if you saw that, but the rotor just unflexed. It's gonna be really bent. Oh my gosh. Check this out. Just to compare, that's the new rotor. That's the old rotor. These come with some type of Loctite on them. Oops. I like to clean it off, not because you really need to, but because otherwise it feels like you're stripping the holes out the whole time you're trying to screw them in because of the hardened Loctite. So I just hit them with a wire brush and then put some new Loctite on it. $27 foot-pounds. On she goes. Okay, I've got the rebuilt caliper and the rebuilt master cylinder installed. The fluid is bled. I'm ready to take it for a test ride, check on the brakes. Okay, well, I got my battery tender hooked up. Just gotta wait for it to charge, but can you just appreciate how nice this thing looks in the sun? Even like missing pieces and kind of cobbled together. It's such a good looking motorcycle. I really don't know this bike well. It's got a lot of torque. I'm used to these little super sports that got no power down low. And it feels like this bike's so big, it's gonna be so laggy off the line, but it actually gets up and moves pretty good to me. Jesus Christ. All right, we got little pops on D-cell. I still have some carburetor caps I need to do. I finished rebuilding the carburetor, but there's this throttle air cut valve or something like that. It does something like rich in the air fuel mixture on D-cell so you don't get pops like that. I'm getting pops. So I think it was gone when I got the bike and I just wanted to cap it off, but I don't think I did so properly. The brakes are a little slow, like not the strongest, and I don't know if that's just because I'm used to sport bike brakes where you can stop on a dime. Yeah, see, the thing, it gets up and goes. I like this bike. It's I can't keep up with anyone else, but you can really have fun on a bike with no power. Yeah, I think these bikes just don't have the strongest brakes, and like it's not dragging. Everything feels fine. I would like it to be louder, but I don't know if I care enough about it being louder to want to deal with having to tune it and rejet it. I pulled the carbs out of this bike once, and that was enough. I actually might have done it twice. It's enough. I don't need to do it more than that. I'm realizing why a lot of cruiser guys talk about never using their front brake, or why a lot of them just delete it. These heavy ass bikes, you kind of need both. And it's actually a little more comfortable to use the rear because the front doesn't dive so bad because the suspension is so soft. You hit the front brake, you really stab it, and like the front just dives. We're not leaking as of right now. Front brakes aren't dragging. Turn signals are coming on. Oh boy, we're really having a good time today. Things are going well. Alright, I'm gonna leave it sitting here for a minute. And what I'm worried about is how much coolant are we gonna wind up with under here? This is the frame rail. This is the backing of the water pump. And this is the reason why you can't get this out without removing the engine. And then, I don't know if you can see that weep hole in there. I've got a lot of seepage here running all the way down the cylinder. Pretty sure that's coming from up here. It's not enough to worry about. I'll probably keep a rag on me while I'm on the road just so I can wipe it down so I don't get a bunch of drips gathering dirt all over the motor, but it's not a big enough deal for me to bother fixing the gasket. My thought process here is that the water pump leak and the coolant overflow problem are two separate issues. The most obvious thing to change out here is the radiator cap. That's that $20 part I was talking about earlier. Once they get super old, the seals start to fail. They're not able to hold pressure. And the point of the radiator cap is to hold about 16 psi in the cooling system so that the boiling point of the coolant is raised by a lot. If it's not able to hold pressure, it's just going to overflow. So we'll see what putting in a new radiator cap does. Hopefully fixes the problem, because otherwise it could be a head gasket. I'm going to start the bike up, let it idle in my driveway for like 20 minutes. And see how it behaves. I think that should be long enough for the bike to heat up and the fan to kick on. Well, bad news. That right there. Yeah, I'm leaking coolant. I don't know why I got so optimistic. That was a mistake. So that confirms we have a healthy motor and unhealthy water pump. I'm going to challenge myself to get the motor onto my workbench from start to finish in one day. We'll see if I can make that happen. So, see you guys in the next one.